Hi everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we are going to have a closer look at the iFi Hip DAC 2 portable DAC and headphone amplifier. This cute little piece of metal is meant to replace the onboard DAC of your phone or laptop, improving the sound quality of your headphones, enhancing your music listening experience. And who wouldn't want that, right? So the iFi Hip DAC 2, as the name might suggest, is the second generation of the Hip DAC from iFi Audio, which is a UK-based company that specializes in making digital to analog converters, headphone amps and other digital audio products for both desktop and mobile use. I got the Hip DAC 2 from the manufacturer for this test, but I neither get paid for making this video, nor do I get to keep the DAC itself, so all you get is my completely unbiased and honest opinion. So the Hip DAC 2 is an upgraded version, but compared to the original, the only difference to note at first sight is the new orange paint job, which I love. Honestly, I can hardly imagine anything that would look and feel more high quality than this thing, especially for around $190 or euros. The extruded aluminum body, the analog volume control knob, and the two buttons on the front are all very well made. The DAC is half the size of a phone and much tinier than a laptop or an iPad. It weighs in at 125 grams, making it easy to carry around in a smaller bag or even in larger pockets. Well, that's somewhat a key selling point of a portable audio device, isn't it? Being portable also means that the Hip DAC 2 has its own 2200 mAh battery, which can last up to 8 hours. Depending on your settings and what headphones or IEMs you use, that can be less of course, but using my Focal Celeste headphones with mixed use of MQA from Tidal and high-res PCM from Qobuz, I managed to squeeze 7 to 8 hours of use out of the amp. You can charge the battery through the USB-C port on the back, and you get a short little USB-C cable for that too. There is also a male USB Type-A connector on the back of the DAC, and that's what you use to connect any source device, your phone, your laptop or maybe your tablet to the Hip DAC 2 using either the USB Type-A cable or the USB Type-C cable in the box. These two cables can cover most phones and laptops out there except for iPhones. So if you want to use your DAC with an iPhone, you will have to buy a separate Lightning to USB-A adapter such as this one. If you have been an iPhone user for a while, you probably have one of these camera kits or adapters already, but if you are new to the world of Lightning ports and cables, you will probably find it a bit frustrating that you have to spend another $20 or $30 just to be able to use your phone with the DAC. Not the end of the world, but it's something you have to keep in mind. Moving on from cables, now let's quickly talk about specs. The Burr Brown chipset inside the Hip DAC 2 supports high-res formats such as PCM, DSD, DXD, and it can also decode MQA. And this is one of the main differences between the previous generation and the new one, as the original Hip DAC worked only as an MQA renderer. The Hip DAC 2 can now fully decode MQA streams, which means, without getting into the more technical details, that now we can enjoy the MQA format and Tidal's high-res quality streams in their full studio master quality. The color of the little LEDs on either side of the volume knob will change according to the format and sampling rate of your source, and there is this little guide in the box which tells you which colors mean what. And to further explore the differences between the original Hip DAC and the new version, now we have a 16-core XMOS chip, which gives us double the clock speed and 4 times the memory of the old model, and we also got an updated crystal clock with reduced jitter, which improves sound quality. What did not change is the fact that we get two headphone outputs. One is the traditional 3.5mm jack, and the other one is a 4.4mm fully balanced output. Using the balanced output gives you a lower noise floor and more power too, but I didn't have a chance to try it as I don't have any balanced cables at hand right now. But let me tell you, that's not really an issue at all, as what you can get from the normal 3.5mm output is impressive enough already. There are two more tiny buttons on the DAC we have to discuss before moving on to the sound quality. First, there is the power match button, which you should leave turned off when using more sensitive in-ear monitors and only turn it on if you need more juice to drive your large, more power-hungry headphones. The other button is called X bass, and yes, it does give you more bass if you turn it on. And talking about bass brings us to the sound quality of the HipDeck 2. Now, as the intended use of the HipDeck 2 is mainly to replace the onboard DAC of your phone or laptop, I'm mostly going to compare the sound quality of the HipDeck 2 to some of my devices which has a headphone jack, such as my phone or laptop. I was using headphones such as the AKG K371, the Sony WH-1000X Mark IV, and the Focal Celeste during my tests. I also tried some random cheap to medium priced IEMs we have in the house, such as a trusty old Sennheiser Momentum. Switching to the HipDeck 2 from the headphone output on my MacBook Pro immediately made me feel like I got a deeper and more transparent view into the music. There is more detail on offer, we get improved clarity, better dynamics, a more three-dimensional sound, and more precise imaging. There is better separation between instruments, which are also more textured, vocals are filled with life. This is what I experienced when using the Focal Celeste. And the same applies to both the Sony and the AKG headphones, but maybe to a less extent. I mean, all these improvements are still very obvious, but the headphones themselves are not quite capable of delivering such a fine level of detail and huge dynamics as the much more expensive Focals can. But that's hardly the DAC's fault. Switching back to the onboard DAC on the laptop makes everything sound more flat and less exciting, regardless of what headphones are used. Both the laptop and the HipDeck 2 have plenty volume, but honestly I was afraid to push volume up to 100 on the external DAC, as all headphones I have are relatively easy to drive, so I could easily achieve volume levels which would probably hurt my ears. So the DAC has plenty of headroom, and based on the specs and other reviews, it has more than enough juice to drive larger, less sensitive headphones as well. And in fact, the harder your headphones are to drive, the bigger differences you might realize from using the external DAC, because the onboard circuits of laptops and smartphones are not designed to drive high-end audiophile grade headphones. Talking about smartphones, let's put the headphone jack on my Sony Xperia to work. Switching back and forth between the audio output on the phone and the HipDeck 2 revealed the same differences in dynamics, clarity and imaging as I found on the laptop. The only major difference was in the volume department. I had to pretty much max out the volume on the phone to get proper sound from the headphones, while the HipDeck 2 has never come nowhere near its limits. As I was using an Android phone for these tests, I have to mention that in order to get all the benefits of using high-res streaming services and a high-res capable DAC, you have to make sure that you use an app which bypasses the limitations of Android itself in order to get the best quality possible. I use the USB Audio Player Pro, which has both Tidal and Qobuz integration, so you might want to consider downloading it yourself. But back to the HipDeck 2, I did another comparison, and this time I put it up against a desktop DAC, namely the iFi ZenDeck version 2, which is similarly priced and very similarly spec'd as far as their DAC sections and their headphone amplifiers go. The ZenDeck is larger and it can be used with a DC adapter which iFi sells separately. It also comes with an analog output, so the ZenDeck can be used in any desktop or stereo system as a preamp. But for this test I only used it on USB power with my MacBook Pro, and I was only wondering if it makes my Focal Celeste headphones sound any better than the smaller portable battery-powered HipDeck 2 can. Well, maybe the ZenDeck is a bit more laid back and less forward sounding than the HipDeck 2, and there is more power at our disposal with the desktop setup as well, but with average to medium quality earbuds and headphones, you will probably not notice that much of a difference at all. Except for one thing, and that concerns the X-Bass function, which is available on both DACs. Well, it's actually called True Bass on the ZenDeck, so they might not be the exact same thing, but they both do the same, and that's giving you more bass. I prefer using it with certain songs on the ZenDeck, as it provides you with a good amount of extra kick in the lower registers, making everything sound more energetic, but it does not have any impact on timing and mid-range clarity whatsoever. The X-Bass feature on the HipDeck 2, however, pushes things a little too far for my taste. The bass becomes too boomy and a bit sluggish, which can ruin even some EDM or R&B songs. Extreme bass heads will love it for sure, but I left it off for the majority of my tests, as I rather have that clean and balanced sound that the HipDeck 2 can deliver by default. I use true bass regularly on my desktop setup whenever I want to get that extra punch, which shows how much better it works there in my opinion. But other than that, the performance of the two decks is pretty close, which says a lot about the tiny HipDeck 2. For under $200, you get a handsome, premium quality, portable little beast of a DAC and headphone amplifier. It supports all high-res formats and can be used with a wide selection of devices, from phones to laptops, from easy-to-drive IEMs to more power-hungry headphones, either at home or when you are on the go. And that versatility is what I find the most impressive. You don't have to sacrifice sound quality on a business trip or during your holidays, as all it takes is to have your phone, a decent pair of IEMs, and the iFi HipDeck 2 with you to get an excellent sounding portable system. Using cables and adapters might be a touch less comfortable than using wireless headphones or earbuds, but the difference in sound quality is worth the extra hassle in my opinion. And even though I will have to send it back to iFi after this test, I will probably end up buying one for myself, because it simply is worth every penny. And on a personal note, orange is kind of my favorite color, and I love the sunset orange finish of this bad boy, so there is that too. And this was my review of the iFi HipDeck 2. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, then you better hit that subscribe button as well. Your comments are welcome as always. Thank you for watching. See you next time.